Goodfellas is considered one of the best mafia movies ever made, and one of the best movies of all time, period. However, it is of the popular opinion that the ending of the movie, specifically once Joe Pesci dies and the helicopter shows up, isn't as good or on par with the rest of it. Some will even go as far as to say that they'll turn off the movie once that part comes on. But what those people don't realize is that's exactly how Martin Scorsese wants you to feel. Yes, you heard me right. Scorsese actually doesn't want you to like the ending of the movie and proves himself to be a master of his craft by not only succeeding at that, but does it so well that you never realize what he's doing. Even some critics complained that the ending deflated everything else. That's how effective it is. But before we can discuss how exactly he did the ending so well, we must first explore why he chose to do it that way. Now, most people would probably argue that the movie ends the way it does because it was based off real life, and that was what really happened. And they would be right. However, it's how he executes that ending that proves him to be a cinematic genius. Because at the end of the day, Goodfellas is still a movie about gangsters, criminals, and other people who do horrible things just to make a profit. But unlike a movie like The Godfather, which does a perfect job of balancing both the good and bad sides to organized crime, Goodfellas completely glorifies everything about the gangster lifestyle. Now, why does it do this? Because it's told through the eyes of Henry Hill, a kid who grew up in a poor neighborhood where only the gangsters were rich and powerful. It was completely indoctrinated into him at a very early age that the mafia and organized crime was the only way to get ahead or be somebody. As he says in the movie, to him, being a gangster is better than being president, and anybody who wants to live any other way is a complete fool. In other words, the idea of living an honest life is so alien to him that he would never consider it unless his life depended on it. And anything unpleasant about the mafia lifestyle is just an occupational inconvenience as far as he's concerned. The mafia life is so glorified to him and corrupted his conscience so thoroughly that he'll go along with anything they tell him to do or anything he thinks will get him ahead. And as I mentioned before, that's who we're seeing the movie through the eyes of. The audience only gets to watch the movie through this warped viewpoint where the mafia life is perfect and everybody involved in it are living like kings. Even his wife, who's a lot more normal than he is quickly seduced into the gangster lifestyle once she sees it from his point of view. And that's exactly what the audience feels as well. As things continually go good for Hill, they start living through him and loving everything they see. Think about it. Hill doesn't have to wait for a table at a crowded restaurant, makes thousands of dollars a week for a minimal amount of work, and gets to hang out with a group of fun guys whenever he wants. In other words, he's living what most people fantasize about, and he's loving every minute of it, and so the audience starts to as well. I mean, even when he's in jail, he's living like a king, in his own words. So, to put it all into perspective, Scorsese tricks you into not only accepting the mob's glorification, but loving it as well. I mean, yeah, there are a few cracks in the illusion, like Billy Bat's murder, Jimmy's killing spree after the Lufthansa heist, Tommy's murder of Spider, but the thing is, all of this only mildly bothers Hill because of his corrupted conscience and seeing all of this as an unavoidable part of his profession. And because the audience is seeing and living through Hill, if it's for all intents and purposes alright with him, it's alright with them as well, and so the illusion stays intact. So to sum up, the audience feels exactly what Hill feels, and as far as he's concerned, he's on top of the world. Things couldn't be going any better. His life is basically perfect to the point that you start to get a high off of his lifestyle like a drug, and it's certainly a high Hill had been experiencing all his life, and as far as he's concerned, it's only gotten better the further he's gone. Unfortunately for him and the audience, though, every high has to have a crash, and that's when reality and Scorsese finally stop pulling their punches, and that's where the brilliance of this movie's ending comes in. The first real crack occurs when Tommy is completely unceremoniously and unexpectedly killed for his part in Bats's murder. A close friend of Hill's and a character the audience had come to have a ball watching is suddenly gone, and that's the first big warning to both you and Hill of what the mob life is really like. But then things quickly spiral into insanity as Hill's cocaine addiction starts to catch up to him and he becomes extremely paranoid, which is represented to the audience as everything moving around very rapidly in a way that easily conveys anxiety and exhaustion. Then the helicopter shows up, only making things worse for him, and after spending a whole day completely stressed out, he's caught by the police. Only this time, his mob buddies aren't there to bail him out. From there, Henry Hill, the man who was convinced he was on top of the world and living the greatest life ever, suddenly starts living his worst nightmare. On one side, he's facing a lengthy prison sentence, and this time it would not be the pleasant kind. And on the other, he's facing death from the man who's supposed to be his best friend, while the guy he'd loyally served for years just throws him a couple of $1,000s out of pity and basically tells him good luck. So when he realizes he's out of options, he goes into witness protection, breaks his golden rule by testifying against his friends, and gets to live the rest of his life like a schnook, to quote him directly. And he's not happy about one bit of this. He's barely even grateful to be alive. And that's exactly how the audience feels, causing them to leave the theater undoubtedly feeling that the ending was a complete letdown. Now, the next question you may be asking is, why does Scorsese want you to feel this way? Well, the answer is really very simple. By framing the movie through Hill's point of view, he gets to show how a gangster really thinks, and even let the audience have the mentality they do for a while, so that they can actually see how great the mob lifestyle feels to the people actually involved in it. Then out of nowhere, he pulls back the curtain to show just how bad, unpleasant, and ruthless it really is. And moreover, is able to show this from a unique perspective by making the arrests, betrayal, and desperation feel so personal instead of framing it as Hill getting what's coming to him, allowing the audience to feel every moment of unpleasantness he does and makes them feel as if they're in the exact same situation as he is. The blow can be softened a bit if you're able to look past the glorification from the start, but even the people who can will usually admit that the movie still makes the mob life look pretty appealing until the helicopter comes into the picture. To simplify it as much as possible, Hill is given a glorified idea of the gangster lifestyle and wholeheartedly goes along with it until reality forces him to admit what it actually is, and even then he won't accept it. Just for a contrast, look at the way The Untouchables depicts gangsters. Al Capone is portrayed right from the start to be a ruthless, entitled tyrant who will bribe or kill anybody to keep his criminal empire going, or just happens to tick him off that day. That movie spells it out in big letters that the mob is a horrible organization, and it does a very good job at it. But Goodfellas doesn't take that approach. Basically, what Scorsese does is make it look like he's making a movie that glorifies the mafia, which gives the audience the mentality that they should just have fun and enjoy the ride, and so are easily seduced into enjoying it before he pulls the rug out from under you at the last minute to show it's not so fun and great after all. That behind all the perks, he's still living in a world of betrayal and murder that could come crashing down on him at any second before it inevitably does. In all honesty, this may just be one of the best movies to unglorify the mob ever, as it dedicates the first 2 hours to building it up as much as possible, so that by the time it shows the ugly parts and tears it all down, the audience is left just as stunned as hell, and brutally reminded of just how terrible organized crime really is. And that disappointment some feel with the ending is indicative that it did exactly what Scorsese wanted it to. Alright, that's about everything I had to say on this topic. So what do you think? Did you like the ending of Goodfellas? Or do you still think it lost its appeal after the sudden death of Joe Pesci's character? Please let me know in the comments below. But until then, thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I hope to see you all next time.